I really, really wanted to reply to her post with like a picture of my Stephen King section of my bookshelf with the most upsetting array of some hardcovers, some trade paperbacks, some mass market paperbacks, the horrid worst format ever, the tall rack paperback.
Oh God!
I have my Dark Tower has every single widely available format of book. I have at least one of the Dark Towers in that format. It's the most cursed bookshelf that I have.
It's I having seen it. Yeah, that's fair.
But I love it. And obviously they're all
cool.
Basically from yard sales. They've all been read, dozens of times by people before me, and I've read them all, and they're all creased and cracked, and I don't know. I just love an old book.
Yeah, I mean,
love a new book too, but I especially
valid.
love an old book.
Yeah, I do love. I mean, this is part of the reason that I love places like Myopic and Perpetual is like, yeah, you find those like really well worn but well taken care of copies of books, and it feels nice. Welcome to Noise Floor, a podcast about music and our favorite artists' discographies. I'm Matt Kistler.
And I'm Troy Sennett.
And today we're starting a new series with, I guess, kind of a novel. I almost just said a novel format, which is great because we're going to be following the career of one Nate Ruess, who is the front person of several bands in our collective history. We're starting off here with the band The Format, formed by him and Sam Means back in the early 2000s. Today we're going to be talking about Interventions and Lullabies, their debut record, and a couple of peripheral things that came out around that time, namely their debut EP and some B-sides. But Troy, tell me a little bit about your history with this band. I went kind of backwards, but I know you were a little more on it while they were active.
Yeah, once again, not an OG, maybe day one format fan, but pretty close. I would have to listen back, but I have probably at various points in this podcast cited the Pure Volume Drive-Thru Records compilation that was called like Bands You've Heard of, You Should Know, Bands You Love, Have Heard of, and Should Know. And it was like a 150 song compilation. There was 2 CDs with a whole bunch of like MP3s on the CDs you put in your computer, like extra MP3s that weren't just on the regular CDs. And this compilation is so formative in my life. But The Format is on that comp, and Tie the Rope was on there. And this is probably 2005. So it's a little bit after this album has been out. And, the band maybe hasn't gained the traction that they want. We'll talk a little bit about kind of what happened after Interventions came out. But I was pretty hooked on Tie the Rope, which was the song that was on that compilation for a long time. And for whatever reason, I didn't like really seek out the album until later. When Dog Problems comes out is when I become a mega fan of this band. But I've been aware of them for a long time, and they have since when I'm in seventh, 8th grade, probably 8th grade when I first hear The Format, and then Dog Problems comes out the summer before I start high school, and just after that I am all in on this band, and then all in on Fun from like basically the very beginning when they formed. So this is Nate Ruess's music, and all the bands you've been in have been pretty important to me over the years, and I'm like very excited to dig into them. So, and then what about you? So you started a little bit later. You came in with Dog Problems?
No, weirdly enough, when I say backwards, I mean very backwards, because I had heard about this band in like kind of their day. Like I was at least peripherally aware of them, and I must have checked them out at some point and just decided that it was too poppy for the person I was back in 2003, 2005. But I'll go more in depth on this when we get into Fun. But when I was in my senior year of college, Aim and Ignite came out. I played one of those songs on the radio, and my mom like called me later on and was like, "Hey, what was that song that you played? It was about pretty girls or something like that." So I like went back and like listened to the whole Fun album, loved it. And then at some point later on, I actually think it might have been when I was working in retail after graduation. One of the playlists at the shop was, the shop being American Eagle Outfitters. I don't want to make it sound cooler than it was. One of the songs that we played on one of our playlists was Oceans, and I was like, oh, this really rules. Oh, this is the format. This is Nate's band Before Fun. I should listen to them a little more. And sure enough, I was like, oh yeah, no, this band has been great the entire time. And they had basically a perfect 2-album run. Where have I been this entire time? And I've been hooked ever since.
I love that your history with this band includes hearing them in a retail store and checking them out further because of that. Because
a retail store that I worked at, so I heard that song every day for a very long time.
I may have told this story before, but I'm gonna burn it right now, even though it's dog problems, because it's so good and is related to that. So my high school girlfriend Molly, she had great music taste, made like some of the best mix CDs, and introduced me to so many bands that I love. I'm sure I cited her on the Rilo Kiley episode because she's the first one who played me Rilo Kiley. But yes, her dad is like a great guitarist, great singer, and like a very Beatles, like obsessed with the Beatles and sort of 60s and 70s pop. And he took Molly to Hot Topic once, and She Doesn't Get It was playing on the Hot Topic stereo, and he was like, what is this voice? Who is this guy? I need to know who this is. And was like talking to the people who were working at Hot Topic and like figured out who the band was. And so then he bought both albums like that day. And that was how Molly got into the format, is because her dad heard them in Hot Topic. And so obviously like I'd heard the format before I started dating Molly, but I'm sure they were a band that we bonded over and talked about a lot. And because I remember we went to Best Buy together to buy Aim and Ignite when it came out.
Everything about that is beautiful.
Yeah, so just a very important band. I mean, I think it says a lot about Nate as a vocalist and his ability with hooks and his capacity to write these songs that, like, even if you hear them in the background, even if you hear them dozens and dozens of times, I mean, I'll talk about this with Some Nights as like a staple of that was everywhere. These songs, they hook you in, and they, to me at least, they don't get old. There's not a single Nate song that I've ever feel like I've gotten sick of, and I've heard them more than many other bands.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably cite this again in the fun episodes, but like anytime that I am like driving home late at night, usually by myself, but sometimes with friends who have a mutual interest in Nate's bands, if I need an energy boost, I throw on Dog Problems, I throw on this record, I throw on Aim and Ignite. Usually I don't throw on Some Nights because I have a little less fondness for that album than Aim and Ignite, but we'll get to that later. Not very much, just like it doesn't get me through that like midnight tiredness as much as some of these other records do. But like it works every time, and yeah, these records just never get old. They have been a go-to for me for so long, and they hit every time. It's honestly incredible.
Yeah, they're just a great band, and I think this series will be really fun because Jesus, I'm gonna do this so many times. This is gonna keep
happening.
There is a lot to dig into with Nate's career because he is, to every single one of his fans is basically like a singular talent. Yet his bands have been plagued by interpersonal struggles with record label issues, all of which we'll get into. And through it all, I mean, Grand Romantic, plus or minus, depending on how you feel about it.
Right.
The songs are there every time. And, for kind of like clockwork for a while, it was every three or so years, he would come back with a new record that would pretty much blow me away every single time. And then he kind of went away for a while.
Yeah. But like to kind of like roll back to the format, something that I didn't really know until like kind of diving in for this episode. Nate and Sam have been in bands together for a really, really long time.
Yeah, they were grade school friends. Well, so I think this is actually kind of important for some of the context of the songs, but Nate was born in Iowa and had suffered from chronic pneumonia as a kid. And so his family moved to Arizona for him, basically, when he was about 6 years old. And then, him and Sam are childhood friends, and they play in... Did you listen to these two bands this past year and Never Gonna Score that they played in together in high school?
I did, and one of them does definitely sound more like a high school band than the other.
Yeah, I mean, this past year is very format coded. Like it's acoustic
it is very
guitars
format coded, yeah.
But Never Gonna Score is straight up pop punk, which I really, really liked.
I would have, if I'd been friends with that band in high school, I would have latched onto them so hard.
Oh yeah. And and the thing that I thought was interesting about it is it feels like that's the late 90s, 99 or so. And it feels so in line with the so Jimmy Eat World, fellow Arizona, Phoenix area bands, or the bands that were coming up in that sort of post Green Day. Really, it's the Sellout crowd, the Sellout by Dan Ozzie scene of this, post Blink-182, post Green Day, pop punk bands where the major labels are kind of looking for. And I think Never Gonna Score got some attention, but never signed a major label deal. But Nate clearly comes up in the same system, gets signed to a major label really young on the strength of this, the kind of these early format songs. And we'll get into that. But I couldn't help but finding some parallels there.
Yeah, no, I mean they are there. There's no question about that.
So then the format starts in 2002-ish with Sam and Nate, and this is, I guess, their third band they've played in together, and it's just the two of them, and they record some later in 2002 an EP just titled EP with Bob Hogue, who's an Arizona guy who I mostly think of as the cello player / producer for the Ataris.
Okay, I was gonna say I knew the name sounded familiar beyond like his production work, but that makes sense.
Yeah, he was involved with Welcome the Night, and then I think some of the later, the later, or like I guess soon to come Atari stuff, if I recall. So I noticed that connection. That EP came out on Western Tread, which is Jim Adkins' record label. So he was an early believer and early promoter of the format. And so we should talk about this EP a little bit. It's got a couple songs that were re-recorded eventually for Interventions and Lullabies in the first single and Let's Make This Moment a Crime, and then a couple other songs that kind of remained in the format canon but didn't, were never re-recorded. What do you think of this EP?
I like it. It was a little hard to go back to the version of the first single that's on this, compared to the final version, just because it's, the mix is
worse.
A little iffy. There's way too much acoustic guitar.
Josh Freese is not playing the drums.
Josh Freese is not playing the drums, which is, really unfortunate. But hey, they got him later. It's fine.
Yeah.
But like, I can tell, like, if I had heard this version of this song first, I would still love it because the song is 100% there.
Right.
Like, there's just some incredibly minor tweaks and one Josh Freese that get added for the album version.
Yeah, and I mean, and this song did, I guess, get some play on local radio, college radio, I assume, and that's what leads to them getting signed to Elektra. And I mean, the song's called the first single. It's undeniable. They know what they're doing.
Yeah,
and the rest of the EP is really good too. It's a little more varied, I think, actually, than the album. There's a little more kind of piano balladry going on without the wake, and I think even better yet, it's kind of fun. It almost reminds me of London Calling a little bit.
I can see that
bounciness, the organ, the walking bass line. Nate's a little lower in his range than usual. That is an interesting song that I think would not make sense to re-record for the album.
Right. Yeah. No. I think this really does stand a lot on its own, and like, I mean, kind of contrasting to the version of the first single that's on here. The version of Let's Make a Moment or This Moment a Crime that's on this EP, really, I like it a lot. The way the guitar tone in the intro makes it sound even more like it's Jimmy Eat World coded than it is on the record, which I obviously love. Because why wouldn't I?
Yeah, I agree. And then so after this EP that I think is decently well received, if not, and like I said, gets them enough label attention to sign to Elektra and make a record, which is Tom Gates, who would later go on to manage them, says that they made this record under the thumb of a major label with a bunch of different producers. And I mean, our Walt Vincent is the only credited producer on the album, but I mean there's 4 different mix engineers credited across the 12 songs. Like there's a lot of people worked on this. I think a lot of sessions and a lot of a lot of players and probably a lot of voices in the room, and it still comes together pretty cohesively, I think. And I don't know if that's to R. Walt Vincent's credit. He's obviously a pretty big producer in the sort of 90s kind of alt indie scene with bands like artists like Liz Phair and Pete Yorn.
Right.
What do you think of this as kind of like a cohesive statement album?
I think it really does work, kind of despite that troubled process getting there. Having the hindsight of looking at what comes after it, like I think everything tightens up a bit on Dog Problems. I mean, you messaged me after, spinning this a few days ago saying it's hard to believe that Nate made so many even better records after this, because it's just impressive. It's
right.
Super impressive.
And it's one of those things where it's like, there's the adage about how like you have your whole life to write your debut, but it is not the first Nate Ruess album. You know what I mean? There's an EP, there's other bands. So like he had time to develop, and he developed this craft over a long time, but even still, like they were, late teens, early 20s when they're writing these songs and making this stuff. And it is undeniable. I think basically every song on here is like the greatest chorus ever written, and the melodies are insane and they stick in your head forever. And but the thing that really sticks out to me is a lot of this album is about ambition. It's about knowing that you have it, whatever the it is, the thing, and you know that you can be like super successful, or you can be a great artist, and what you have to sacrifice to then make that happen.
Yeah, and I think that latter part is like maybe one of the biggest themes on this record, because there feels like there's so much reckoning with what you leave behind on these songs, both interpersonally, familially,
relationships,
it's palpable.
Right. And so and like we should get into the songs, because like we'll talk about this across the album, but that is how it kind of coalesced for me listening to it multiple times this week.
Yeah, same. Let's get into it.
Yeah, so the album kicks off with the first single, which is, we talked a little bit about it on the EP. This is a much tighter, more pristine version of the song, featuring now Foo Fighters drummer, former Foo Fighters drummer, now back to Nine Inch Nails drummer, Josh Freese on drums. And man, it's like I said, they knew what they were doing calling the song the first single. This chorus is so big and so powerful, and it just makes so much sense for this to be a song about knowing that you can do the thing that people think that you can't do.
Yeah, we'll obviously talk about the rest of the songs on this album, but it feels like such a bold move to put this right at the beginning, which they did with the EP too. And like, where else do you put this song? But it feels like this is, like, I'll say straight up, this is one of the best songs on the album. And it almost sets a dangerous precedent for the rest of what this band is going to do. And then they rise to the occasion on the rest of the record, and it's wild.
Yeah, it's just the arrangement is a lot of acoustic guitars, layers and layers of acoustic guitars with this really strong rhythm section that sort of sets the tone for the album. Nate's voice is insane, which I'll try not to say that too many times, but it just is.
It is. There's no denying that. I think like specifically like from a songcraft standpoint, and an arrangement standpoint, I think one of my favorite things about this song, aside from the chorus, obviously, like that's the thing. I love the way that things shift into the bridge. And like just how the entire vibe of the song just kind of turns inside out into this like quiet drum machine driven thing. I mean, it might not be a drum machine. It might just be Josh Freese, who is also a machine. But and then the way that things just explode back out of that drum fill that comes out of the bridge on this song is one of my favorite things of all time.
You just want to like
any song
pump your fist. They're not like a get in the pit band, but like I mean, when they play this at the show that we're going to in April, I might mosh a little bit.
Everything is going to go off the second that hits.
Yeah. Man, I'm excited for that show.
I'm so excited for that show.
But yeah, this is a great song, a great opening track, kind of one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, for real.
And then we get to Wait, 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 which is another song with Josh Freese drumming. Another one that I think is typical of the album. They don't really stray a ton from they kind of pick a sound and they stick with it, and they're pretty consistent throughout the album. So I won't like harp on that too much, but it's a sound that just really works. And I think it's a sound that a lot of their peers weren't really doing. This more acoustic guitar based, a little more folk influenced without being folky in any way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, especially like we don't need to talk about the B-sides yet, but like kind of hearing some of the stuff that like didn't make the album, like you can hear where that stuff was like a little more prominent, and like how they like maybe pulled that back to like push out the pop sensibilities a little more. And I think that was a wise choice.
Yeah, well, and the thing that's interesting, sort of comparing it to the Never Gonna Score stuff, or I don't know what else you can compare it to. As a producer, as a bandmate, from Sam Means's perspective, as arranging these songs, you kind of have to get out of Nate's way sometimes.
Sure.
Because I imagine that some of the calculation in putting these songs together is that his voice is just like otherworldly. He's pulling from Broadway, he's pulling from opera, he's pulling from so many different classic rock, everything, and I think having a band that's a little more stripped back than something like what Never Gonna Score was trying for lets him shine without it feeling like everyone else is, getting totally trampled on. I mean, and Sam obviously holds his own as he's a great guitarist, a great musician as well.
Yeah, no, like everything supports everything else in the format. I think it's just kind of a holistic thing that I can say definitively given these two albums.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that will continue into next year when we finally hear all of Boycott Heaven.
Right.
Because the singles also imply that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that's really like, I think that's a running theme of this band, and kind of why they kind of settle on this like particular sound. That's like I want to be clear, like this, I feel like this album has a lot of variety, and I feel like we get a lot of like hints of things that are going to become bigger parts of the format, like overall sound as we know it, like given the catalog that they had in the mid 2000s. Like not necessarily on this song, but like over the course of the album. But like, yeah, there, we've talked about this in the past. Like there's not really another band that sounds quite like this. And like they pull off this sound seemingly so effortlessly. Like obviously there's a lot that goes into it, but like it all just works. And like they managed to do like kind of walk the tightrope between like having a sound and having that sound become one note, which could have easily happened.
Right. Yeah. And I'll cite one little element of the song. The bridge has this really cool slide guitar part. I don't know how much slide there really is anywhere else on this album. And maybe that's kind of the thing that they do to make each song stand out, is they give each song one little element that doesn't exist anywhere else on the album.
Yeah, there's more slide guitar on Give It Up, but that's the only other time there's slide guitar on the album.
Yeah, this is the one that stuck out to me the most.
For sure, yeah, it's really great. There's also like some like kind of bleep bloopy synths happening behind that, which is like a fun little contrast. And I think that's another thing that they do well, is get these like kind of contrasting sounds and textures going. That again, like they contrast, but they fit together really well because of the way the arrangement is working.
Yeah, we'll talk about this much more next week, but it does feel like they're sneaking those things in on this album. And then on Dog Problems, they're like, what if we build the entire plane out of the black box or whatever, out of the cool stuff.
Yeah, no, that is like my thesis on Dog Problems as it relates to this album is like, yeah, it's just they took all the things that worked here and made them bigger, and it. What do you know? It totally works.
Yep.
But
that's next week.
That is next week. Lyrically, there are a couple things I really like on this song. The thing in the chorus, the don't make a sound because the song don't stop till the tape runs out. That's like, man, that's some real young person stuff right there.
Yeah.
That I love. And like it very like, I feel like pretty much everything on this album is like almost to a fault self-aware, but it always works, at least for me.
The song is very much like mired in imagery of death, and but using it not to talk about death itself, but more about how friendships change and people change and move on, which is sort of leads right into Give It Up.
Yeah, that's the big one on here is the I've since made graves, but I'm too scared to etch the names. Because I'm the one who's changed. Like, yeah, it's so, you know, we kind of talked about this in the overall album themes, like the kind of this doesn't even feel like it is necessarily a conscious giving up of your relationships, just kind of the everyday slipping of friendships that you once considered very important as life just kind of goes on, which is incredibly relatable.
Knowing that you have changed because you are striving for something bigger, different outside of your town or whatever it is.
Exactly. And the feeling of conflict that comes with that when you have any modicum of self-awareness beyond the goal.
Right. And we should get into Give It Up now, because that is sort of the central idea of that song, which is this set around graduating high school, and this idea that, some people, Nate seemingly being among them, are kind of sort of ready to get out of their hometown and, have this, kind of a non-zero amount of ego about being the one who did get out or who will get out or who has kind of the skill, the talent, the drive, whatever it is. And he's also kind of challenging the people who aren't. This idea of you're too scared to go.
Yeah. And being confronted with the fact that people will say that they want that, but they maybe don't necessarily, or they do want that, but they're not willing to do the things that will take them there.
Yeah. And the second verse, I think, is kind of the best version of this, because it has this sort of interesting relationship with nostalgia, where he is, as a writer, as kind of the persona of the song, is copping to this idea of I am very nostalgic and I miss the songs we used to sing, talking getting away would be the greatest thing. But then he's like, well, I actually did it and you didn't, and where does that leave us now is sort of the idea of the song.
Yeah, exactly. But talking about arrangement stuff, this is where we get our big tuba moment on the record.
Oh, yep.
And I love it so much.
Yeah. I love the bridge. It's doing the thing where he's just listing the names of classmates and sort of where they are now and what they're up to, which is a thing that, the Academy does this in a song. The Wonder Years do it. Dashboard Confessional does it. Piebald does it. Is it Dashboard? I think they do it in one song.
I'd believe you.
Yeah, and so it's an idea that whenever I hear a band do it, I file it in this little playlist in my head of here's the we list the names of all our friends song that I always really like.
It's always a nice thing. It's the thing that we talk about all the time, where it lends, this idea is very universal in a lot of ways, but then we get that extra layer of specificity that really of course we all know an Adam and a Mark and a Joe. They're people that we've met in our lives and maybe don't know anymore or haven't talked to in a long time.
Yeah, but then it sort of punctuates it with this: we were kids back then, as if we could progress.
Yeah, and starting off the chorus with "So give it up, throw your hats in the air," just kind of punctuating the graduating is the thing for a lot of people, and sometimes that's through no fault of their own. Sometimes it is a choice that you make, which I think is the case for most of the people that are being kind of referred to in this song.
I know I've played it on every graduation day that I have ever had.
Hey.
All right. Next up is Tie the Rope, which is, like I said before, the first format song I ever heard on that Drive Through Pure Volume compilation. I still think it's kind of a weird introduction to the band.
It's a very wild song to introduce you to this band.
But thinking of it in the context of the Drive Through project, this more pop punk oriented stuff, I think it probably is the best song on the album to have put on that comp. Notably, Steel Train had a song on that compilation that also was a very weird. They put an acoustic song on it. Very strange fit for that comp. So these two bands that just kind of didn't quite fit in with that scene that end up obviously forming Fun. Their core members form Fun later. But so yeah, I mean, I thought the format was going to be a little more of a rock band, a little more of a synth-driven band, because those are the elements of this song that are the most prominent.
Yeah, the only other song on this record that I can think of that would also kind of work in that context is Sore Thumb.
Right.
But in terms of the things that bands from this era were singing about, this probably is the most thematically tied, if you will, to that scene.
That's actually a great point. The sort of macabre imagery of the chorus especially is probably, that's probably the reason they chose the song as opposed to any musical reason.
Oh yeah, like it's incredibly glib about self-harm and suicide, which is
or
which was
murder.
in vogue.
Yeah, I mean, it's more like, isn't he sort of telling the person to like, or is acknowledging that she doesn't care about him, or what's it? I'd rather watch you drown than see your hands. You'd rather watch me drown than see your hands get wet.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, there's maybe not no love here, but there's very little.
Yeah, this relationship is definitely past the point of saving, unlike some of the other ones on this album and these songs that are just kind of fading.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's a good one. It's again, another chorus that's just been kind of stuck in my head on and off for 20 years.
Oh yeah, an incredibly catchy song. It gets stuck in my head all the time.
After that, we have Tune Out, which is a little more of a ballad mode. This song, I'm reminded of the song a lot when I listen to Fun, because they do this kind of ballad thing a little bit more often. And this is, like you just kind of said, another song about kind of the malaise of a stagnant relationship and tying it to the imagery of escaping into a boring, repetitive radio playlist, which is somehow less sad than the relationship that you're escaping.
Yeah. I mean, the song starts off with the line, "It's your bed, so please choose a side." Like that's you've given up so hard right out the gate.
Yeah.
But like in a way, the song is like weirdly also kind of jaunty. Like
right, they're another one of those. We love so many bands like this that are the incredibly happy melody, incredibly sad lyrics sort of bands.
Yeah, for sure. But this song in particular, like I obviously see a lot of like comparisons to like the Beach Boys, but like this song has those like really like 60s Phil Spector produced ooh-ahs in the chorus too, which like only lends further to like the kind of the theme of just turning on the radio and you know, calling it a day. But I find that very, you know, very endearing in its own way.
They really do nail that vibe with the production on this song. It's an excellently produced album.
Yeah, for sure. Like and again, like kind of given the production timeline and personnel line, it's incredible that it ended up the way it did.
Yeah, for sure. Again, credit to R. Walt Vincent for being able to sort of wrangle something so consistent and so great out of these sessions.
Yeah, absolutely.
After Tune Out, we get I'm Ready, I Am, which is a song that starts pretty quiet, and then you get a sort of diegetic strike up the band, and the whole band kicks in, which is, again, another song that's about a relationship ending kind of with a slow whimper that I think you can pretty easily tie back to this idea of feeling like you're too ambitious, kind of too big for your town.
Yeah. Like, yeah, there's that line, old classmates, please drop your pens. Like basically I like, just don't, it's not worth trying to maintain this. Like whether or not you're reaching out to me because I'm like gaining traction in music, like it doesn't matter to me. Like, I'm not worried about that. I just like, I don't want to talk to y'all anymore at all.
And I can see this kind of attitude bothering someone. Because like you don't necessarily want to hear someone sing about how great they are, which I don't think is necessarily what Nate's doing here. But there's an element, like I said, there's a non-zero amount of ego in some of these songs, which I find endearing in part because the songs are so freaking good.
Yeah, no, it definitely doesn't hurt that the songs are so good, and like it again, like this kind of comes back to like the self-awareness of the lyrics that like you can feel a sense of this feels wrong to me, but it is how I feel because of the circumstances that I'm currently in.
Yeah, and he undercuts it all with I'm trying to find truth in words and rhymes and notes and all the things I wish I'd wrote. Like there's that element of self-doubt there too.
Yeah, exactly. Like this could fall apart at any point. Like I have to, you know, I'm where I am now, but I have to keep it up at this point, which like there's, you know, no matter how talented you are, there's no guarantee that that's gonna continue to be a thing because you're at the mercy of everybody else at a certain point. Like,
yeah, well, and that's
yeah,
that's kind of tied to this also kind of right before the old classmates, please drop all your friends part, or drop all your pens part. Is this the need to fit in gets harder when living life from a script. So, that he does feel like he's kind of escaped this. These are the things that we have to do as, young people nowadays or whatever. Our parents' expectations, all that.
Well, and you get out of more or less out of that, and you enter a different thing with a different set of challenges, like Nate's disenchantment with the music scene and the music business more specifically is palpable through his entire career.
Right.
But like it's already apparent here. So
yeah, getting into the bridge, this idea that like, what if I'm successful, what am I except like, somebody's addiction, somebody's ATM.
Right. Yeah. I want to make a quick note of did I actually hear this, or am I just going crazy? Is there a weird edit in this song, like around 2 minutes and 13 seconds? Because I like got caught off guard by it and listened back to it a bunch of times. It's like somebody like brought in a take like partway through a note being played and like just like ramped the fader up really quick on like a guitar part, I think. I feel like this is something you would notice and I wouldn't usually.
Yeah, I know what you mean there. Yeah, it's almost like that. There's like a separate guitar part that comes in, and it's almost like it doesn't have the little fade, and then you would put in Pro Tools at the beginning of a section or whatever. You're right. It is just a little bit jarring. I hear what you mean.
Yeah, that is something I had not caught before. Literally today, like all my other listens to this record, like I went without noticing it. So like it's not damning or anything. I was just like, oh, this is odd. What's going on here? But it doesn't take away from the song at all, obviously. Especially since this is the song where we get the title from. The title of the album.
Yeah, great. It's a great song. There's not a bad song on this record.
No, especially not On Your Porch. One of the best songs on this record.
This is the best song on this record.
I think you're probably right, yeah.
I would hear the argument that this is the best format song. I would hear the argument that this is the best song that Nate Ruess has ever written. There's other contenders, but this is up there. This is kind of the album's centerpiece. It is an acoustic ballad about Nate's family, specifically his father's illnesses and his own challenges facing his father's illness. And a running theme of the series is going to be that I think Nate's best writing is always about his family. Any song that specifically references his sister or his parents it goes up a level to me for some reason. The way that he writes, the way that he sings about his family is like nothing else.
I think I might fully agree with you on that. Yeah, I don't know. I definitely do think this is up there in terms of the best format songs. But yeah, this song is just so intensely personal. In an album of songs that are clearly very personal, like this just feels the most like close to home, because it is like I take pretty much everything from the song at face value, and I don't think that's an unsafe assumption.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty literal song. I think it's one of those things. Yeah, here's what happened. I mean, whether the conversations are word for word, but I trust that the ideas and the emotions are very true. And I mean, I literally was crying listening to if you fail, well, then you fail, but not to us. It's like the most amazing sentiment for a parent to ever express to their child.
Yeah, 100%. And like, not to get into like clever songwriting in this, in very emotional thing. The way that's like turned around in the second chorus is really beautiful, because it like comes to a like in a post I've done this world, like how am I seeing this, and then you get to that line, and in the second chorus it's if I fail, then I fail, but I gave it a shot.
Right, and
which is also a really beautiful sentiment. Like,
yeah, and it's sort of the kind of balm to the my ambition might wreck all my relationships thing, and it better be for something. It better feel worth it at the end of the day. And this is, and then sort of following this conversation with his father, this idea that like, well, maybe just giving it a shot is enough. Like, It's time to get out of the desert and into the sun, even if it's alone, even if no one else is really going to believe in me. I don't know. There's a lot more, I think. You talked about that there's a lot of self-awareness on this album, and I think this is kind of the most self-aware, the most mature song on the record.
Yeah, definitely. Like it is, again, like it's the most bare in terms of like not, trying to remove the lyrics from just like strictly being about Nate's life, to like, make it more relatable. But like I have not moved away from home that far. But like, I still feel the like, the tension of, being, a little bit away from your family when shit's going wrong. And like, obviously in this situation, that was very much happening. And it's a tough thing to reckon with, especially when you feel like you're making the choice to, not necessarily be there as much as you think you could be or should be.
Yeah, well, and then I also just love this sort of specificity of my thoughts bounce off Sam's guitar. That's the way it's been ever since we were kids, but now we've got something to prove. This, I don't know, it so succinctly sums up this idea that in 4 lines, it's like, yes, this is the thing that I have always done and always know is the thing I want or need to do. And there's just this beautiful little synth pad going under there. It's a wonderful part of a wonderful song.
Yeah, 100%. The song is perfect. There's no two ways about it.
I used to very regularly make this the last song on the mix CDs that I would make for friends.
Yeah, that's honestly a very good call.
Yeah, very important song to me. Next up, we've got Sore Thumb, which is sort of the opposite of On Your Porch in the sense that it going from kind of the quietest song to one of the biggest rockers on the album. This is the third and last song that Josh Freese plays on. This song is just kind of massive in every way. I think this has up there with the first single, like one of the most amazing choruses, this amazing bridge. I got no bad things to say about this song. I've covered it with City Mouth before. It's a great tune.
It is a great tune, and that's a great version of that song. Is that like out there anywhere, or has it disappeared in the annals of the internet?
We put it out on a Absolute Punk covers compilation, I think. And I think that has long since been scrubbed from Bandcamp, and so it just exists in my Google Drive now.
That tracks.
Matt might have sent it out to like mailing list subscribers at one point.
Okay, well, if you're out there listening and you have access to that, go listen to it. It's really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, this song rules. It is. I think one of my notes is this is one of the most punk adjacentist songs on the record. And I love it for that. The energy here is almost unmatched, aside from maybe on the first single. And I honestly adore it. I also have no bad things to say about it.
Yeah, I just this is one of those songs where the lyrics change a little bit between each chorus in a way that I think is really interesting. The first chorus has "You don't mean that much to me. You keep the ring. I'll take those Saturdays in bed." And then the second chorus changes, "You don't mean that much to me. Give back the ring. Keep all the summers with your friends." This idea that this sort of like push and pull of how you want to think about this relationship, this breakup, that's in the way everything is kind of falling apart and shaking out.
Yeah. It's really unsurprisingly well constructed, it turns out.
Yeah. It's a great one.
It is.
After that is A Mess to Be Made, which is kind of a slower 6/8 tune. Lots of accordion and banjo in this one. Another song that is about, distance that comes from, I read this as being about going on tour and, the relationships that you leave behind when you go on the road. I don't know if that's like the read of this song, but it's definitely what I thought of.
I think that makes sense. Like, especially since we get to like a weird middle of the song line of "Why don't you write a song about it?" Well, here it goes. Which like I love that that's in the middle of the song instead of like right at the beginning. But like that makes a lot of sense. Like that's a thing you would do on the road is like call home, talk about what's going on, and get told, well, like that sounds like great song material, man. You should do something with that.
I read that line as so much more bitter. I read
really?
that as like, you're as like the person, girlfriend, whatever, saying to him like, you're the one who left, you're the one who brought all this trouble, this tension, like why don't you don't talk to me about it, I don't want to hear about it, put it in like a fucking song. Like I read that as a very bitter line, and the response to it being a little bit bitter too, this idea that I'm out here doing a thing that I'm in a place I don't really want to be, doing a thing that I love, that I want to do, but I think that the disconnect in the relationship is evident in those lines.
Yeah, I think the lines following that do lend a lot more to that interpretation. I don't know where I was going with mine, but yeah, I think that's valid, because like, yeah, I'd hate this place if it weren't for the waves, if it weren't for the fact that you love it. Like that, there's palpable disdain in that resentment, if you will.
After that is Let's Make This Moment a Crime. Another one that's a little more like laid back, I feel like, than some of the album. It's relaxed, but it still is kind of a rocker that a little bit, that in its own way, that just adds a lot of synth in this song in a way that I really like. Yeah,
this song is really built on like contrast in terms of like just energy levels. Like, we get that big stop before that first chorus, and then the chorus just really hits. Which I think is great. We also get another little word painting moment with the never want to stop, and then there's just a full stop for like a second or two, which is always great. Of course, it's always great.
Yeah, I don't think I have a ton to say about this one, except that I do think it's a jam. I think it's really catchy, like every format song.
Yeah. One thing I did notice about this song on these couple listens through, and like I think I've always kind of like had this in the back of my head, is the way that I'll Never Get It, I Shouldn't Sweat It is sung, like feels like it gets quoted later on and she doesn't get it, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Like it's not like 1-to-1, but it's there's something there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great one. And then we get to Career Day, which is the sort of effectively the closing track of the album. Same Situation is a bit of a coda at the end, but the Career Day starts off with kind of one of the more interesting production moments on the album, I think, with this sort of guitar, piano, drum loop that's processed in really interesting ways, and kind of over the course of the first verse and over the bass line morphs into the sort of naturalistic tones that most of the album has.
Yeah, it's a standout moment in the album. And like, there's a lot of those, obviously, but like this feels like almost the most Far Cry sonically, like the intro specifically sounds the most like different from anything else on the record, I think, even beyond just being a standout.
Yeah, but man, it's such a great song. And this is sort of the culmination of this theme of ambition and what you sacrifice in pursuit of your goals, as it sums up that theme that I think has been percolating throughout the album.
For sure. I just like, enhancing the visibility, or I don't know how I want to phrase this. I love the way that Nate sings "All Ambitious Thoughts" every time that line comes up on this song. Like it feels so restrained, and that feels like it's also saying a lot. And I just absolutely love it.
Yeah, and I love the way that it takes these two disparate ideas of like a corporate businessman and an artist, and draws this line between them that connects them through these, being cursed by ambitious thoughts.
Yeah, I definitely.
Yeah, which I mean, I think deepens when you think about the band's relationship with the music industry and Nate's thoughts specifically on it, that we'll talk about a lot more as the series goes on.
Yeah, 100%. There's quite a bit of that.
Yeah, and then the back half of the song is sort of taken up by this long in with the outro and out with the old repeated chant with lots of other stuff going on over it. There's a wonderful little banjo part going on in there, and like one of the coolest bass fills I've ever heard in the middle of that.
Yeah, I the outro is really cool. Just the way they build textures in that. Like the drums get kind of dirtier as it goes on. Yeah. There's those bits of just like studio conversation snipped in. The only one I could really make out is like Nate saying "one more time,"
Yeah.
All right, cool. And then there's a bunch more, but I wasn't able to pluck it out. I'm sure it's not essential as far as like your listening experience is concerned, but like everything just like kind of like gets thicker and bigger over the course of this really long outro, and I really love how that works.
Yeah.
And like it feels great as a penultimate song too.
Right.
As a result.
Yeah, and building on the wordplay of the in with the outro and out with the old. It's great. And then the album actually closes with a save situation, which is, like, I think the shortest song on the album, a very quiet sort of denouement with it's kind of built over this sample of like road noise and acoustic guitar, and it's got some emo trumpet in there, which I love. It is just a very sort of pensive way to end the album.
Yeah, it's honestly it feels like it kind of manages to tie back to all the themes of the album in a really small package. I really like this song as a closer. I messaged you like shortly before we started here that every time I listen to anything by the Format on Tidal and I don't have like autoplay turned off, it will naturally play something from Aim and Ignite, which makes a lot of sense. But this song going into Take Your Time Coming Home was like absolutely wild how well it worked.
Yeah.
And again, another closing song. Anyway, that's I think this song is a really great way to cap off this album, which is impressive given that it is the shortest song on the album and is like kind of spare in a lot of ways until it like really gets those big like brass and string arrangements going.
Yeah, something about this song. It feels like he's getting a little bit of a comeuppance for the sort of more egotistical elements of the album. This like, it's such a pet peeve when you prove me wrong. I'll fall down when we all fall down. There's an element of that we all fall down again is sort of the way it ends. There's an element, it also like, I need to get back to Tempe, which is kind of like, I actually do need to go back to my hometown. It's not all about getting out and getting away.
Yeah, well, it's funny because he specifically talks about Tempe, but then like references roads that get him away from Glendale, his actual hometown,
right? Yeah,
as opposed to the metropolitan area, which like it is a thing that everybody who's from like a smaller town. I don't know how small Tempe is, or
it's all part of
Glendale is.
The big Phoenix metropolitan area out there.
Fair enough. Referencing Tempe the way that some people would reference Aurora here in Illinois.
Right, yeah.
Just so everyone knows, Illinois' second largest metropolitan area is Aurora. It's the second biggest city in Illinois. You might be surprised to learn. Shout out Wayne's World.
But yeah, no, it's a good way to end the record, I think.
I definitely agree.
Yeah. So after this album comes out in October of 2003, in March of 2004, their label Elektra folds and is absorbed by Atlantic. And the band basically gets kind of lost in the shuffle. They think their contract is going to be just totally voided or just they'd be let go, and they actually weren't. They were one of those things where like they were just good enough, just slightly successful enough for someone to remember that they were there and that they might have some potential.
But not enough to promote the album that they just put out at all.
And they hustle. You look at you can read all kinds of stories about this band and all of the, their sort of grassroots DIY promotion, the way that they toured, the way that they connected with their fans. So this album goes on to sell like well over 100,000 copies, and sure, even more over the years with vinyl reissues. And after Nate has seen even greater success and fun. But they were in this weird situation where they had tours lined up they had an album that the label didn't really care about. And so Atlantic gave them money to make an EP called Snails, which we're going to talk about most of the Snails songs next week. But part of that EP that they released in 2005 is acoustic versions of some songs on Interventions. There's acoustic versions of Wait, 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 Tune Out, and On Your Porch. Any specific thoughts on any of these acoustic versions on this EP? We'll talk about the new songs on the Dog Problems episode.
For sure, yeah. I think that like just all of these acoustic arrangements speak to how tight the songwriting is in this band and like how innately these two understand what goes into making a good version of a song. Because like we've talked a lot before about like kind of throwing together acoustic versions of songs, and these are absolutely not that. Like everything feels like it works. Like there are just like ever so slight adjustments made to like the way the vocal delivery works, or like slight changes in melody so that like Nate's not drifting off into space away from the acoustic guitar, which could easily have happened.
They make one choice on this set of songs that I think is bad. I mean, bad. I mean, the song is still good, but like the my thoughts bounce off Sam's guitar verse of On Your Porch is dynamically the song goes up. It gets louder at that part in this version, whereas in the album version, that's a quieter, softer moment. And I think that change sort of the throws off the sort of emotional arc of the song in a way that I don't really like. But obviously, like the performance is still great. The songs sound great. They're still like nice acoustic versions to listen to.
Yeah, I mean that dissonance makes sense because like the On Your Porch was already like a pretty low key song to begin with, and they turned the dial down on most everything on the song. But yeah, that is a moment where that's an odd choice to make for that in particular. I don't think it makes it worse by any means, but
yeah, it is actually kind of a weird one to do an acoustic version of, since it is like very nearly an acoustic song anyway.
True, yeah, that was kind of an odd choice, but I think they recognized that it was one of the best songs on the record, so I guess why not give it a shot?
Yeah. And there's a few other B-sides, some of these just from compilations, some of these from their own B-sides and rarities comp, which I was just kind of like using context clues from the liner notes to figure out which ones we should cover in this episode. But yeah, there are a couple of covers of my dad's favorite artists. Kind of interesting.
Yep.
They do for different compilations. They did Bob Dylan's Simple Twist of Fate and Bruce Springsteen's For You, which are, I think, really, really fun, mostly acoustic, but bring in some full band elements, versions of these songs. They're two guys who have, notably sort of unique, textured, interesting voices. And Nate is a very kind of pure vocalist in a way. And so it's interesting to hear him take on these, there really aren't two more different vocalists on my iPod than Bob Dylan and Nate Ruess.
Right. Yeah.
But so what do you think of these covers?
I think they're both pretty good. I do enjoy that Nate kind of throws on the affects for both of these folks. Because like, obviously he's a pretty singular vocalist, but like he's doing his best impression to whatever degree he can do that. And I think it mostly works. But like you get to some parts of these songs and you're like, oh yeah, no, he's trying to play it as close to the original as he can.
Right.
I do like the big energy shift towards the end of the cover of For You, that like, the original Springsteen version is like pretty steady throughout, like, a rock song. Whereas this, is kind of basically acoustic until it like really launches into this like kind of Americana tinged romp at the end. And I think that's pretty fun. But I also think that I Came for You, but I did not, or You Did Not Need My Urgency does feel very format adjacent in terms of ways in which one would construct a lyric.
Yeah, I agree. And then there is the first song on the B-Sides and Rarities comp is called You're Not a Whore, which is a song attributed to The Real Partners, which is Nate and Sam and the members of Limbeck, another incredible band that I really, really love. Which I guess is just like a one-off throwaway song that they wrote while Limbeck was crashing at Sam's house. What do you think of this one?
It's okay.
Yeah,
it's fun. The lyrics are cringy as hell. I don't like that very much at all.
Yeah, it is impressive for a thing that they threw together in a couple hours.
Oh yeah, no, like it's wildly like off. Like it's wild to me that this ended up on the Formats B-Sides collection, but I guess where else would it go? It feels like mostly Rob singing on this song, right? From Limbeck.
There's a lot of Nate in there. They're kind of duetting the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you haven't heard Limbeck before, don't take this as, or if this is your first Limbeck song, then go seek out Hi, Everything's Great, and then especially Let Me Come Home, two of the best albums to come out of the Arizona scene. And that's saying a lot considering that Jimmy Eat World is also from there as well.
They're a band I need to revisit post hastily because I haven't listened to Limbeck in a long time.
They are so good. And then we got a couple more format demos on here. Faith and Fast Cars and 7-Digit Pin Code are the other two on this comp that I think are from this era, just based on when they would play them live and what and what Nate says in the liner notes. The liner notes for the B-Sides comp are so funny because there's songs that Nate is like, I don't remember recording this. But I like Faith and Fast Cars a good amount. This is a song that is it has a very bitter tone to it that then evolves in later live performances, which even references in the liner notes. He's like, I started changing the lyrics and, it's probably better for it.
Yeah, there's that I just wish you would die line that got changed into now I hope you're all right. Because that's a sentiment you feel in the moment that does go away eventually.
Right. And
in
willingness
in most cases.
The willingness to let the songs grow with you over time, I think it's a good thing.
I think that's great. I think more bands should do that. Yeah.
And then there's 7-Digit Pin Code, which is like, I'm not surprised that this song didn't make it onto an album. This song feels like a writing exercise to me. It's Nate's writing in a character of a guy that he heard about who was posting nudes of a girl on the internet and then was found dead in the James River, presumably killed by the girl's father, which is like a very sad, upsetting story. But like, this doesn't feel like a format song to me.
No, not at all. I didn't have that context going into the song when I hadn't listened to most of these B-sides before this last week. But yeah, I was like, this seems off.
Yeah.
And that it makes a lot more sense given that context.
Yeah, so that's the Interventions and Lullabies era of the format. Just again, like I've said a bunch of times on this episode, an album that is very special and is full of great songs and is somehow like it would be most bands' best album, and it's somehow like the third or fourth best Nate Ruess album in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like this is not to quantify things, but like it's like a 4.8 at worst. Like
yeah,
it's incredible, and like in a lot of ways it does really only go up from here for the most part.
Yeah. So well, more on that in the coming weeks. Do you have a random recommendation for this week?
I do. I'm gonna recommend. I feel like I shouldn't recommend singles to people because I tend to fall off singles, especially when they get announced way before the album. But the song is really good, and I think people should listen to it if they haven't already. My recommendation is the newest Tiger's Jaw song, Head is Like a Sinking Stone, off their upcoming album Lost on You. I think you and I have similar opinions on Tiger's Jaw in that I think that like mid to late career Tiger's Jaw is superior Tiger's Jaw. And this song, it feels like it's kind of taking the best of the newer stuff and kind of synthesizing it with the best of what made them a special band to begin with. I just like, it's got that like newer Tiger's Jaw production sheen, but has a couple of like the elements of like things that I liked about the self-titled album and a couple of the other earlier releases. And I think it's, a sign that this album's going to be great, but I won't know if it is until March 27th of 2026. Between now and then, I imagine they will release half the album and I will stop listening to the singles after the next one. So, but anyway, this one's a good one. So I think the album's probably going to be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this record. I want a lot more Brianna vocals and a lot more synth. And I want this band to sound as much like The Anniversary as they possibly can. That's my favorite brand of
That
Tiger's
is
Jaw.
my only gripe with this song is no Brianna and almost no synths. So yeah, please turn up those dials on these next couple songs, guys, and you'll have a record on you.
Yeah.
What you got, Troy?
This week, I have been on a kick. This band called Discount. Discount was a 90s Florida pop punk band fronted by Alison Mosshart, who would go on to play in The Kills and The Dead Weather. This band's music is not particularly easy to find. It's not on any streaming services, as far as I know. But I am going to recommend their album Crash Diagnostic, which is their third and final album. And it is like a proto sort of Newfound Glory. Like you can draw the lines to sort of Newfound Glory, to Paramore, to kind of all the the pop punk that would come on in the next like 5 years after them, but also to stuff that's more like, punk news adjacent, like a Latterman or Joyce Manor, or kind of the more kind of punk side of pop punk. And I really love this band. I think Alison Mosshart has one of the best voices and is a really creative lyricist. And every couple of years, I remember that this band existed, and I go find their albums again, and I am just, come on, give me the reunion show. It's not, besides the Weaker Thans, which I know will never happen. Also, Discount, I know will never happen. But like, come on, Riot Fest, give Alison Mosshart all the money.
Yeah, just give her a bunch. Give her a bunch of money, and she just ask her to play one song. That's all we need.
Well, I want the whole set. I want the whole
set. Yeah,
yeah. But Crash Diagnostic, great album.
Yeah, that's I haven't listened to Discount in a minute, but this is my semi-annual reminder to go listen to Discount. So I'm gonna do that very soon.
Yeah. All right. Next week we will be back talking about the second and final. I keep saying final before I just got back together.
They did.
They have a new record coming out. No, the second format album, Dog Problems. We'll be talking about that one next week. And in the meantime, you can find us on the internet at noisefloorpodcast.com and follow us on Instagram at noisefloorpod and send us emails at noisefloorpodcast@gmail.com. And we will see you next week.
See you next week.